What's up, guys? How's it going? Alright, so today what we're going to do is I'm going to really briefly go over all of the attacking heroes and pretty much give you an in-depth guide over kind of different hero combinations that are available to you, and also kind of help you kind of sort out like what you should use for what unit types and why. Now, to start us off, I thought I'd go to, I'd pretty much make some recommendations right off the bat. Okay, attack speed in this game is pretty useful. It's a kind of a means by which, like for example, all right, I'm gonna throw a legendary hero out there known as Talion. Okay, one of the nice things about Talion is, he's gonna increase Primera squad HP and squad attack. He's got his own benefits in terms of training speed, but one of the things that you're going to notice is he increases your army attack speed by 13.2%. He's also going to decrease the enemy attack speed by 9.6%. And then he's also going to follow that up with a 50.4% increase to an army crit damage. Now, in the case of Talion, when it comes to armies and everything in between, alright, army speed is kind of a nice factor. In the middle of a battle, the guy who is able to hit faster, more frequently, right, is ultimately at an advantage, okay? The more damage and the faster at which you do that damage is advantageous, right? So this is something that, when you're seeing people pair them up, you're going to see a lot of people, what they'll do is like Tycho, okay? Similar traits, okay? We're going to see a drop in reduction. We're going to, increase the damage dealt, but then we're also going to decrease the enemy attack speed, okay? Okie dokie. So now we've got two heroes right off the top that I can tell you, okay, are going to reduce that speed, but who else? Now, you're noticing a trend here, obviously the legendaries are the ones who have all the goodies, and they're hard to upgrade, alright? But, like, when it comes to crit damage, there's Cordis, there's Cantor, there's, Talion. It's when it comes to crit damage, it's there, but there's obviously a chance versus actually increasing it, too. So, like, in the case of Vex, okay, there's a chance to dodge it, there's a chance to increase it as it's going along, but there's also a chance to decrease the damage dealt over time too. So there's a lot of different little factors here that you can consider messing with, right? Now, we're looking at this purely at, okay, this is what the skills are doing, right? You can change the speed at which your opponent hits you and increase the speed at which you hit them. You can also take into consideration of how much army damage you're doing. You can also modify how little damage your army takes. Okay, now how is this helpful? It's helpful in the fact that in the best case scenario, alright, if you're going to do attack, you're probably more than likely in an attacking situation. You're going to do speed and damage. And probably, that's what's going to make the most sense for you. In the case of like Kalo, though, like here you're dealing damage, you're decreasing the damage done. There's a 30% chance to increase the damage dealt. Okay, so now we're getting into the realm of a rolling factor. Of, okay, you might make XYZ increase over such and such a period of time. Here, oh, hey, there's a 5% chance to remove a debuff from yourself. But vice versa. Here's an increase to the army attack speed. And that's another example where, like, here we've got Tycho decreasing army speed. We've got Adremus increasing army attack speed. Talion being a combination of both. Who else could we take into consideration? Well, if you look at Praetus, you'll notice that he increases the damage dealt, decreases the enemy attack speed. Oh, hey, what does that sound like? Just like Tycho, okay? So Tycho and Praetos are pretty much, they're in the same court in terms of what they're offering. And like Adremus, he also happens to, once in a while, kick off a debuff, okay? Now, I bring that up because those three have a lot in common, right? Which is to say that if you look at Adremus, he's, Vanguard Veterans, Tycho is predators. In the case of Praetus, he's also a predator. Okay, but he's also a collect hero. Now, you have to be given some mindset of what you're going to send, too, whenever you're attacking somebody. I mean, I've seen everything, at least from what I can tell. Okay, and this is making observations and what I've already been doing, what I see other people doing, and also just in general. A lot of focus is going to be put on probably your dreadnoughts being the damage soakers, right? That is to say that if you are attacking somebody, most people, alright, they're going to probably not worry so much about doing damage on dreadnoughts, but so much more so trying to keep them alive. And then they're going to increase the damage in something like Primaris, or they're going to increase the damage with, Predators, or they'll even go so far as increasing the damage in Vanguards, or maybe they're increasing damage with Whirlwinds with like Elvinius. Okay, there's always a different angle, but the angle is almost always the same, which is to say that everything else does damage. Dreadnoughts soak it, everything works. That's the mindset, generally, right? Now, that isn't to say it's the one strategy fits all solution, but it does give you kind of an idea of what you're working with here. Now, you'll notice that, every once in a while you get the chance bonus, you have a crit chance. Now, you notice this crit chance, that's the thing. When it comes to crit chance as opposed to, like, crit damage, right? Those are two completely different factors. One is to say, okay, you have a chance to crit versus one that actually does the crit damage increase. Okay? So, there's also that. So, in the case of Elvinius, that's another crit chance. There's, with Solaris, another crit damage. And in the case of, say, Sicario, that's another crit chance. Okay? So between Sicario and Elvinius, those are both crit chance. Solaris and Talion are both crit damage. And I believe in the case of Vex, this is kind of one of those things where, what about dodging damage, right? Dodging damage is also a factor where, you have a chance to, let me actually verify this. I'm trying to remember who exactly it was. It might have been Alastor that I was thinking of. Yep, that's who I was thinking of. So, here you can decrease enemy damage, and then you can rebound 5%. There's only a couple of exceptions where you'll notice, like, certain heroes having, like, unique abilities. Okay, so, like, if for example, if I look at Calgar gets a 3% chance to disable the target for attacking 1 second. Lastor's got a rebound effect. If you look at, like, Sicarius, for example, he's going to increase the damage dealt, once again, the army damage, increases the army damage deals. He's all damage increases for the most part. But, like, somebody like Shrike, on the other hand, again, you're looking at damage reduction. You can also see here there's a chance to dodge. So, like, Shrike, it has a little bit in common in terms of looking at, like, how all of these heroes kind of mix match. Now, again, we're just looking at the skills right now, okay? But in general, whenever you're trying to pick what heroes to use and why, you want to pay attention to the 3 categories that they fall under, too. So, like, here, war-type heroes determine the strength of a deployed army, defense-type heroes increase the strength of a defending army, and vice versa, right? So, if I'm going to be defending, that'll be another video, but I'm just going to focus purely on the attacking. Okay, so, like, to give you an idea of some hero combinations that you could use, potentially, alright? And I'm just going to start over from the beginning, okay? All the different heroes in the game, right? You actually, it's probably easier, since I've already got them out gathering right now, I'll go through here from here, right? But something that is also going to be a factor, okay? So, where, yeah, you're going to have skills and bonuses here, you're also going to have to focus on whether or not Are you going to have, all Primaris, or are you going to go all Whirlwind, or are you going to go all, so you have many different angles to approach it with, right? But you also have hero combos. Now, hero combos are nice because they're going to give you an X amount of bonuses based on whatever it is that you're using at the time. So, like, you could use Cordis, Alastor, and Adramus for an 8% HP increase to your heroes. Now, how effective is that really? Is that something you need to worry about when you're attacking actual players? And I'm going to argue not necessarily. I don't think hero combo, even though it's a factor, I don't think it's big enough to really justify it when you're wanting to pick army lineups for that matter. So if you're going to be attacking somebody, I would recommend you want to send things like and I'll give you an example of one I love using already, which is to say I like using Tycho, okay, because that's going to increase your HP while you're attacking. You obviously want to live longer, but then if you use somebody like Cordis in tandem with him, not only are you going to be dodging damage, you're going to increase the crit damage, and you're going to increase the damage that you're dealing over time. Which, when I was explaining this earlier, it's like, here we're increasing the speed at which we attack, we're decreasing their speed, and we're also overall trying to increase our damage so that we do more damage. So it's, obviously, the faster at which you would do damage and deal damage is good. And then I might throw Talion on top of that. And now I've got, not one, but two heroes that are focusing on Primaris damage, one that's focusing on Predators, and that's a really nice combo, because in the case of Talion, I'm also decreasing that speed again, I'm increasing my speed, and then I'm increasing and I'm double downing on the crit damage, so that if it does crit for whatever reason, I'm going to get a boatload of kills that way, plus I'm dealing damage over time. That's one combination. Obviously, not everybody's going to have decadent skills, okay? Especially with legendary heroes, because it's expensive. And if you're thinking, oh, how expensive? I'm talking few $100s expensive, okay? It does not take a lot to get expensive in this world. So in this arena, I'm just trying to give you an idea of really where to look, or rather how to start. But like in the case of Vex and Shrike, those are both Vanguard. In the case of, like, say, Sicario and Alvinius, those are both Whirlwinds. If you're looking at Dreadnoughts, Omnius is a really great, overall, really good choice for Dreadnoughts. But you'll also notice that Calgar is as well. You see, there's a lot of relationships between them that you'll want to pay attention to. Like, Cantor is another Primaris squad attack bonus legendary hero that I also don't happen to have. Now, it's not to say he's hard to get. He's not really that bad, but it is something that you want to take into consideration. In the case of, like, Alastor, there's Vanguard veterans, so with Vex, Alastor, and Shrike, you're kind of all promoting the same tree of things. If you're working, like, on Kalo, that's another Dreadnought-based. So, like, you could go Kalo, Omnius, and then, I don't know if you wanted to or not, but you could always throw that on top with Calgar if you had them. Not everybody's going to have Calgar, though, and so then it raises the question of, like, well, then what's that third missing will going to be? You could, right, you could go Adramus in a Vanguard mix of Vex and Adramus with Shrike, or you could just as easily do Adramus, Vex, and Alastor. But, one of the nice things is, like, in the case of Solaris, that's another Primaris squad bonus. Plus, you're going to get, your crit damage increases, and you're going to get reductions and damage over time increases, too. And obviously, all of that's going to be dependent on both the skill, the level, and the gear power of the actual hero that you have at the time. So, it's a bit of a loaded issue, but, overall, those are just a lot of different factors to pick. Ultimately, if you're asking me, though, I love using, like, Tycho and Omnius in tandem, mostly because I like being able to do a lot of damage with Dreadnoughts. So what I like to do is I'll usually do Tycho and Omnius and Talion, or I'll do Tycho, Omnius, and Cordis, or I'll do Tycho, Omnius, and Kalo. Because, I'm trying to mix match and trying to improve my dreadnoughts. Because where a lot of people are using dreadnoughts like T1 units, I'm using them the other way around. I'm actually making my dreadnoughts incredibly fucking overpowered so that they don't die that often, and then I'm just supplementing the DPS behind it so that you do more damage over time, because obviously the longer your troops live, the more damage you're going to do. You know, and so ultimately the strategy there is not much different. You know, if you want to think it through, just remember that what you send is also going to be a factor, and obviously what you're against is a factor too, you know? So like if you're going to fight somebody with dreadnoughts, the best counter to dreadnoughts is vanguards, and therefore you're going to want things like Shrike and Vex and Elastor and Adremus, you know, a lot sooner. So if you're going to use like range units, then you want to use Primaris. So, you know, you're going to be looking at things like Solaris, you're going to be looking at things like, you know, Cordis, or even say, you know, you could even throw in Cantor there, right? But, you know, let's say overall, where does Ernica fall in this? Well, Ernica, okay, kind of an interesting mix match all around, you know, fit in. Most of the time, I will find that, you know, if you're going to be defending, you're going to want to use Ernica and Omnius for defense, because part of that has to do with the fact that they get a defense increase bonus. There's actually only like a handful. You'll notice, if you actually pay any attention to this, at the very top, you'll notice that they actually have their own roles and what they do. And so any of the defense role is pretty much the main center point. I believe those are the only two heroes, at least that I have right now, that I know of that have it. I believe, yeah, so like in the case of Cronus, you know, like where does Cronus fall in this? I mean, he's damage reduction, increases damage over and then he's also 10% chance to deal damage over time. Now, damage over time is also not necessarily unique to Cronus so much as you'll notice Ernica has something similar to that as well. Plus, there's dodge damage with Ernica, and then there's also a 30% chance to increase the damage dealt. Definitely things that you want to pay some attention to, at least when you're wanting to pick your hero lineups. I always recommend that whatever it is that you're focusing on at the time, especially if you're going to be attacking and you want like some attack formations to, you know, kind of build up on. Like I said, I prefer balance over anything else. So like you'll notice I will go all high tier units for the most part and go super balanced this way. Is this efficient? Oh, hell no. It ain't nowhere near efficient, okay? If you're really wanting super efficient, and I'm saying this in a really polite way, but like super efficient would be like to start min-maxing what you're using. So like right now you'll notice I don't have any dreadnoughts in this mix, but I would use a lot of level 1 dreadnoughts if it were me. So like I'll bring this down to a reasonable amount, and we'll just put all of those in as dreadnoughts. I will usually, okay, if I had an army of like 6,000 here, okay, at least 2,000 of those are gonna be dreadnoughts. Like, I don't joke around with dreadnoughts. I like having a lot of dreadnoughts in my marches. I've yet to find that to be a fail point for me, because outside of what you're doing in attacks, it is a factor of whether or not you're using Freeblade. And really, if you're not using Freeblade and you're not upgrading them, then you need to, because the guy's giving you a stupid amount of bonuses, especially if you upgrade them. Like, look at this. I mean, we're looking at a stupid amount of damage and attack and HP and debuffs that you are usually underutilizing if you aren't already using them. So just keep that in mind. Outside of that, though, I mean, to give you an idea of what's possible. I mean, because I know some people are kind of like, yeah, I don't know, like they'll look at a guy like this. He's got 11,000 troops. It looks pretty scary, right? Because he's got 1,000 some units down there. But one march of 6,000 will wipe out a complete march. Why? Partly because of the tier of the stars of those heroes, the level of those heroes, and also the skills of those heroes, okay? But you'll notice statistically, too, there's a huge difference. I have a 70-some% defense bonus, 40% going to HP. You'll notice the stats are a big factor here. That's why you want to focus a lot on research, especially in military tech. So, like, you'll notice my troop attack is up the wazoo. But then you look at it, and it's like hardly anything dies except for 34 level 6 dreadnoughts. Now, that isn't to say I didn't have level 5 dreadnoughts in there. It's just the level 6 dreadnoughts died. Now, why that is, it has a lot to do with the way, and I'll even show you the battle report so you can kind of get an idea of what's going on here. But you can see that, like, everything in here dies. Okay, so, like, if I pull this up, you'll notice that my level 6 dreadnoughts, right from the get-go, okay, get attacked. They kick off evasive maneuvers. There's a chance of dodge. They end up taking 73 damage, and you go through it. And yeah, I mean, if the closer you look at it, you can kind of see what's going on here. This is the nice thing about the battle log. It will at least give you an idea of what's going on. So if you're not familiar with the battle log, now you kind of know where to look. But ultimately, what this is serving for you is really giving you an idea of what's going on in the battle. Outside of that, I mean, really, yeah, it's a bunch of mumbo jumbo for a lot of people. You look at it and you go, okie dokie, what does that really mean to me? In simple terms, without really reading and having to read the mumbo jumbo in here, one of the things that's always nice to check preparation. Okay, because preparation will tell you everything as far as, what bonuses and army bonuses are getting applied. And then you're able to kind of foresee what to expect from that. Now, I wouldn't say the battle log is a tried and true way of, like, determining every battle, because I've noticed that it can be a little bit different dependent on, like, what you're up against and where you're at, what kind of fight, you're in. If you're rallying versus soloing, you're going to be in different circumstances. But ultimately, with that in mind, I hope you guys found that to be of some help. Again, as far as formation percentages go, because I'm sure someone's going to ask about it, like I said, I'm going fairly balanced. So a lot of my marches, out of 6,000, I'm using 2,000 of them, sometimes as little as 1,500, just purely on dreadnoughts. And then I'll mix balance the rest, and try to keep them relatively balanced. I'll obviously uptick if, let's say, the guy has more whirlwinds. Well, then I may take 10 or 20% of my Primaris out and put 10 or 20% in for Predators. Because you're always wanting to pick whatever, if they don't have, like, enough of one unit type. So, like, if from the get-go, the guy's not got a lot of whirlwinds, well, then make advantages where you get them. If he doesn't have a lot of whirlwinds, then make more Primaris in your march, and vice versa. You always want to take advantage of that, but you never, ever, 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 ever want to be that guy that has no dreadnoughts, because what then happens is then you're in a really crappy boat, because you've done screwed the pooch. When you don't have any dreadnoughts in a march, you're playing by different rules. That isn't to say you can't play by those rules, but you best be aware that the rules change a bit. If the dreadnoughts are not there, then it's going to be whatever unit attacks first. And this is why I said you should probably check your battle report and pay close attention to the row at which units come first, second, third, and so forth. I can tell you from experience, what I've noticed is that dreadnoughts will go first, vanguards won't be far behind. Shortly after that, it gets a little murky. I've noticed it sometimes being Primaris. I've noticed it being Predators. It's not necessarily consistent at that point, depending on the attack speed. But, yeah. But with that in mind, I hopefully that gives you some idea of, like, what to do, or really just kind of get an overall feel for the game, at least mechanically speaking. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to share if you want to help me kind of grow the channel and really get it out to more Lost Crusade players. And ultimately, I will see you guys to the next video.